Today is Friday, October 18th, and I'm William Michael, the headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. This afternoon, I posted a message that will go out to all of the Academy's mailing list subscribers tomorrow morning about the availability of private instruction for interested families in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. Students of all ages, really. And I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about what private instruction is, how it works, what the benefits of private instruction are, and who it's intended for, because it's a unique opportunity for us to work together in classical Catholic studies. It's open only to a small number of students, and parents have the opportunity to consider whether this will help them achieve their goals in classical Catholic studies. And I have the challenging task of finding students that will actually be able to make progress in classical Catholic studies over time. So I think if I can address the issues up front, I can save all of us some time so that we don't have to go into this with a trial and error attitude and just waste a lot of time. When I started the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, I had a specific kind of student in mind. I taught in private schools before I started the academy. I was an upper school classics teacher. I taught Greek and Latin classes, history, debate, rhetoric, writing, SAT prep, all of that stuff. I was usually sort of the classics department by myself, and I would just teach a handful of courses each year to students who wanted to enjoy classical studies. And what would happen in these private schools is that there would be some extraordinary students, some really unique, gifted students who are motivated, who wanted to study, and were just, bored, not challenged by the school curriculum. And those students would always get sent to me. And usually their parents would either hire me for private tutoring, or I would bring the kids into one of my existing classes and just work with that individual student privately and try to give that student a course of study that would challenge him, because I was a teacher that, could always show myself more zealous than even the best students. And so those students usually liked working with me. Their parents liked having them work with me, and rather than lose them either to another school or to homeschooling, the schools used to send them to me to work with. And so over time, the number of these students continued to multiply. And, I said, I feel bad for these kids, because in a way I feel like these kids are like me. They love to study. They want to study more. And yet the school is not designed for students like that. And so there's really nothing for them to do. And I said, what's needed is a school program to be developed that is actually designed for the best students. Not a modern school program that's designed for the average student or designed for the lowest achieving student. There needs to be a school program developed that's intended for the best student. And when I decided to go ahead and get started developing the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, that was my intention. My intention was to build a study program that would challenge the best students, that the best students would never be able to exhaust. And that's really what the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is. Now, the problem with the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is that there are many students enrolled in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy as homeschool students who are not good students. Their parents don't understand classical education. Their parents don't necessarily study. They're really just looking for modern studies, and they like the Classical Liberal Arts Academy because it's cheap. If the price was higher, they wouldn't be here. They really don't even engage with classical Catholic studies. They're just spending all of their time in grade level studies, modern arithmetic, stuff like that. They really don't even participate in the mission of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. And there are many students. I would even say the majority of students would be that kind of student. They're in the academy because it's cheap. That's really why they use the program for their homeschool. They don't study the trivium or the quadrivium. They don't get into philosophy. They really don't get into theology much. And yet here they are. And the Classical Liberal Arts Academy was not designed for those students. And what I am constantly working to do is keep the program focused on the core courses. They're labeled as core courses. They're the courses that I always talk about. They're the courses that I'm always focused on, and they will always be the courses that I offer for live classes or private tutoring or produce resources for, and so on. When I originally agreed at the request of parents to offer modern grade level courses, the agreement was that for students who were pursuing classical Catholic studies, I would make modern studies available so that they could check off the grade level requirements in an efficient way, in an affordable way, while they focused their attention on classical Catholic studies. And what always happens in education is everything always degenerates into just minimum requirement grade level studies. There's no way to avoid that. It's just like the plague of modern education. Everyone degenerates into barely checking the basic boxes for grade level math and science and English, whatever. It always degenerates because everyone knows, including the students, everyone knows that that's all that's required for a high school diploma. It's all that's required for a job. It's all that's required for college admission. And, at some point, as soon as the going gets rough, students and parents just begin to settle for what's necessary or the minimum requirements. And when they say what's necessary, they don't mean what's necessary for the pursuit of wisdom, what's necessary for the pursuit of happiness, what's necessary for, our intellectual development as Christians in the modern world. When they say what's necessary, they mean what's necessary for me to satisfy the minimum requirements of compulsory education in secular society. And for most students, that ends up being about all that they ever do. And even in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, most of the students end up barely submitting any work and just checking the minimum boxes, or they eventually just quit and either go to a modern school program or, just focus on basic tasks. So regardless of that, the Classical Liberal Arts Academy exists for students who don't want to live like that, don't want to study like that, for parents who don't want their children to have that kind of an education, but who want to have an education that resembles the education that was pursued by saints and wise men throughout history. And that can be done in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. But we've got to focus on those courses, and we've got to understand the motivation for those courses. And to be honest, the students and parents seeking those courses, seeking those studies, need help. They need encouragement. They need motivation. They need accountability. They need support, and so on. Because there's really no support in our society for any real studies. It's all just what's needed for the diploma, what's needed for the degree, and really you can see that all anyone is thinking about is how they're going to make money with studies. And that's really never historically what studies were for. So for classical studies, I've got to bear this burden of motivating, of encouraging, of supporting, and just helping by tutoring and services, consultation, and so on, to articulate the goals, to help parents understand, to motivate parents and students, and so on. So leaving homeschool families to themselves is not a good way to do that. I would offer live classes, but we'll end up just with minimum requirement kids being signed up for those classes. They won't get the work done, and the classes will just bog down and stall. So it's not worth trying to have a big class with lots of students. I've listened to those requests in the past. I've offered those opportunities, and they were, never successful. The only thing that has ever worked through my years of teaching, when we talk about extraordinary education, real classical Catholic study, the only thing that's ever worked has been private instruction, private tutoring. Just me working with individual students who are motivated, who are interested, who are open to real studies. Usually they have minds filled with stories of saints and wise men from history, and they say, I want to be like those men. I want to study like Thomas Aquinas. I want to study like St. Dominic, and so on. So there aren't many of them, but they do come along, and I want to make sure that the Classical Liberal Arts Academy remains a program that really is focused on those students, because the world needs those students. The church needs those students. We need to challenge those students. We need to help and support those students, because they're the kids that grow up and actually change things. They're the kids that grow up and actually have the knowledge and the worldview and the vision and the discipline to actually go into fields of study and work, go into religious life and actually do stuff. Those are the kids that are going to do it. And so we've got to try to find those kids, support those kids, and continue to support them as they move from their childhood years of study into their adult vocations. So I'm offering, beginning, I guess next week, I'll be starting, but I'm offering the opportunity for parents to sign students up for private instruction with me. And what private instruction means, working remotely, it means that I will meet with a student for 1 hour in a Zoom meeting, and we'll focus on one course in the classical Catholic curriculum. We'll focus on one course, and we'll just work through it together. We'll read the lessons, discuss the lessons. I'll help the student to understand what the lesson is teaching. I'll discuss it, ask some questions of the student, make sure the student understands, and then I'll simply go into the grade book on the study center, mark the assessment complete, and we'll just keep moving through the study like that, just working directly one-on-one. We don't need written assessments and things like that, because I'll be able to assess the student face-to-face by discussing the lesson. So there's no need for this written assessment, as if there's no connection between the teacher and the student. I'll be able to assess live. So I'm willing to do this, as I said, one course at a time. So what I'd like is for a student to sign up for private instruction, and for a parent to choose a course that they'd like to focus on and get done. And I'd like to start at the beginning of that course and work straight through to the end of that course, finish it, put it on the kid's transcript, and then we can talk about the next course. I don't want to bounce all over or just provide some sort of vague general tutoring. That's never profitable. I'd like to just take one course and meet with the student for 1 hour each week and work through as much of that course as we can each week until it's finished. And then when that course is finished, we'll move on to another course, and we can continue doing that. If a parent would like for me to work with a student in more than one course from the beginning, they'll simply need to subscribe for more than one meeting session, and we'll use one meeting session each week for one course and another meeting session for another course. So parents have the freedom to set up whatever they want, especially as I open this up, because my schedule is going to be wide open. So it's just that simple. We meet live on Zoom, we work through a course together, and when a course is finished, we decide what's next. If students are local here, in the Charlotte area, this private instruction can be arranged right here at my office. Students can just come in and we can meet here for whatever the scheduled time will be and work through their studies. So whether it's remote studies or local studies, I'm available for private instruction arrangements. I'm not offering any discounts or any special arrangements, not making any special agreements. I'm keeping this very straightforward, very, very clear, very strict, because I just want to make progress with the students. One option to consider, and I'll talk about this more in a minute, one option to consider is that if parents either work together, I'm assuming we'd have parents from different families organizing a group. I'm willing to teach a group, to work with a group for private instruction. The students would all have to be able to work together, so it can't be a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old. They'd have to be students who can work through a course together, and they all have to keep up with the pace of the course as we go through it. But if there were some families that wanted to put kids together and schedule a certain meeting time for a group, they would take the cost of tutoring and basically split it. So if you'd like to make an arrangement that could save everyone some money, the group option might be able to do that, but it would take some work on the part of the parents to communicate and organize a group. And of course, we can help facilitate that, but we're not going to create those groups or do that work. We're going to leave that to parents. So there's two options available that I've mentioned. There's individual private instruction, and then there's group private instruction. If you go on the Classical Liberal Arts Academy website, right on the front page, if you look at the front page of the website, right at the top of the page, I've got information for private services, and you'll see tutoring, you'll see consultation, but then in addition to that, you'll see two options for private instruction. You'll see individual private instruction, and you'll see group private instruction. So that's all open and ready to go. My availability is posted on those subscription pages. All the information is there. So that's open and ready for subscription for anyone who's interested. As I said, I'm not going to make any special arrangements. I'm not going to make any discounted offers or do anything special. I'm not going to teach multiple courses under one subscription. I'm keeping it very simple, very strict, because I want it to be effective, and I don't want a million things going on all over the place, which always ends up just being nothing. So it's just going to be very straightforward, working through a single course at a time to actually get academic tasks done and not just mess around. So that's available. Now some have asked questions about, well, what if we're working to start a parish school or we've got a homeschool co-op? You're going to have to work with those two options. Those two options are the only options available. Like I said, there's not going to be any special arrangement, just individual private instruction meetings and group private instruction meetings. That's it. When that schedule fills up, that's it. That's all I can offer. And as I said, right now the schedule is wide open, and as subscriptions are made, I'm just going to take them on a first come, first served basis and start knocking hours off of the available time slots and get started as soon as the parents decide that they want to get started. So that's already open for subscription. You can find it right on the front page of the Academy website. One other announcement that I want to make, I've toyed with this idea of live classes. Parents are always asking if we offer live classes. You know that I've tested different arrangements with live classes, and I'm pretty sure that I know what I want to do now. What I'm going to offer starting in January is a live class for a core course in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. It's going to be a synchronous course, meaning that we're going to work through half of the course in half of a year. We're going to, basically I'm going to teach a full year course over the course of 2 academic terms, the winter term and the fall term, or vice versa, start in the fall and finish in the spring. But I'm going to select a number of core courses that I would like to help students focus on, and I'm going to offer live courses in those, or live classes for those courses, but there are going to be deadlines. Students are going to have to start when we start. There are going to be assignments due on specific dates, and when that course is finished, as long as the students keep up with the work and stick with me, those courses will be completed for them at the end of those live classes. So it's a good opportunity for parents to help students have a little more accountability and gain some discipline in their studies, and also focus on some core courses which most students can't handle by themselves. So in January, as I said, there will be announcements between now and then, but I'm going to offer some basically semester-based live classes that will be open to help students get through core courses, and I'm going to continue that each term, offering a number of live classes. So if you're interested in that, you can either just wait for announcements or get in touch with me and I'll give you more information. I'm going to be focusing in all of this work, I'm going to be focusing on classical Catholic studies. So don't come requesting private instruction for algebra or modern math or any. There are a million options for that, and as I always say, nobody cares about the quality of study in modern subjects. Nobody cares. Colleges look at transcripts and they just look to see that the required courses are on the transcripts. Nobody has any idea what the quality of those courses consists of, and so spending tons and tons of time and money trying to become the best algebra student in the world is just misguided. Nobody cares about the quality of those courses. They just look to see that those courses are on the transcript. If you do want to focus on something that's valuable, I would say focus on standardized tests like the SAT and ACT, things like that. Because that's the only place where anyone looks for quality, where there's any sort of standardized measure of actual student quality. So spending more and more time on modern subjects, it just doesn't accomplish anything. You'd be better off just focusing on working on an SAT prep book or something like that and trying to get the highest possible SAT score, because what most parents are doing, it's just not how the admissions process works. So I'm not going to use these private instruction meetings for modern courses. If that's what you're looking for, don't waste your time, because I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested in working to make these little Doogie Howser math and science kids, because no one's looking for that. No one is interested in that. There's no colleges looking for that. Even, I spoke recently that the CEO of NVIDIA, the world's leading processor manufacturer, is urging kids to pursue liberal arts studies because AI can take care of much of the coding work, and there's not going to be great demand for, tech jobs that were popular over the past decade or so. There's just a lot of misunderstanding with these things, and what parents do because they follow this sort of like peasant's advice on the street that really isn't coming from the top of the different fields or from institutions, that they just do things that don't make any sense. I'm reading a book right now, for example, it's called The Theory and Reality by an author, Peter Godfrey Smith, who was a Stanford professor, or at least researcher, on the philosophy of science. And when I read works on science itself, on the state of the study of science, on the philosophy of science, much of what modern schools and parents say when they talk and think about science is not even true. And there's just so much ignorance, there's so much popular knowledge, like stuff that people are getting off of science videos on YouTube or social media and things like that, that's just not even true. And we're neglecting core classical Catholic studies, thinking that we're clever and smart to focus on modern math and science, and it just doesn't work like that. Problem solving, no matter what sort of work you do, no matter what field you get into, problem solving is going to come down to reasoning. It's going to come down to creativity and shrewdness in reasoning, and the more and more a student understands the science and art of reasoning, the more and more skillful they'll be in problem solving. And I can't communicate that enough to parents, that what everyone is doing just is not how great thinkers are made. If we look back through history and make a list of the greatest thinkers that you can think of, they were not raised like little nerdy math and science kids. That's not how they were raised. That's not how they worked. Look at someone recent like Einstein. He worked through thought experiments. Like most students in math and science classes don't even understand what that means. And the greatest minds, the people who really moved progress and discovered great things and solved great problems, they weren't raised like modern public school kids. It should be obvious, but for some reason it's not. Focusing on real studies, classical Catholic studies, learning the Catholic faith, gaining wisdom, learning the art of reasoning, learning the art of rhetoric, learning the classical liberal arts, understanding the modern mathematical arts and sciences is helpful, but without those deeper wisdom arts, we might call them, all that stuff is just superficial school nonsense. It's really not real world knowledge or skills. So to get kids deeper into real studies, the classical liberal arts have always been recommended as the way. They're available to students from beginning to end. There's no limit to what students can do. This is the curriculum that is needed for the most gifted and motivated students. And while I know it's difficult for parents to comprehend and implement this program at home, private instruction help is available. So if there's interest, if a student has ability and wants to pursue more challenging studies, the opportunity is available. But we're going to focus on core classical Catholic studies. I hope that's clear. So all the information is on the front page of the Academy website. There's no special arrangements that are going to be made. My schedule's going to fill up quickly, and I'm just going to take first come, first serve. So now that the message gets out, I'm just going to start filling up time slots, and I'm going to prefer, I'm not going to, I'll be honest, I'm not going to treat everyone equally. I would rather work with older students. I often get requests from zealous parents with young ones that they would like to get started early. I would really like to help kids ages like 12 and older as priority, even older if possible, high school age students. If possible, I'd like to focus on getting them the best instruction that they can get during these most important years of their lives. But like I said, generally speaking, it's going to be first come, first serve. And if it's a bunch of young kids being signed up, I'm just going to go with it if I don't see older kids being enrolled. So all the information is on the front page of the website at classicalliberalarts.com. If you have any questions about private instruction, just send me an email, write to wcm@classicalliberalarts.com. So I look forward to seeing who signs up, getting started whenever you're ready. I can start as early as next week, and we're still just in October, so we've got a couple months before Christmas break, and we can just keep kids working into the new year and go from there. So get signed up if you're interested. Send me any questions if there's anything you'd like to discuss before signing up, and let's get to work. God bless.